Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. I'm Tali and I'm an English teacher from Azerbaijan. I've been learning and teaching English for the last 12 years. I'm going to talk about how I actually learned English and what I did to achieve the fluency. I'm going to go back to the first thing that I actually did when I learned English. English was not a language that I liked at first. I actually hated this language. Maybe because of the teacher that I had back in the 5th grade when I was at school. And we basically started learning English in the 5th grade at school, even though the system has changed a lot since I was at school. Now the students learn English or another language when they are in the 1st grade. There was a teacher that I didn't like the methods of or the anger of, and I started to hate this language. Now when I look back, I don't know how I actually didn't like, because now English is my life, my day-to-day language, and I speak this language more than my native, which is Azerbaijani. I'm going to talk about why I didn't like this language and what I did to actually feel like this is the language I can speak for the rest of my life. So basically when I was 10 years old, I started learning English, but I wasn't learning anything. I learned zero thing when I started learning English in the 5th grade. And our teacher, I don't know if she's alive right now because I'm 29 years old and it happened 19 years ago. She was already old. She was an old woman. And I don't know if she's alive right now, but if she is, shout out to her. She made me hate this language, but another teacher or something kind of sparked the love for this language, and now here I am as an English teacher in front of you. But let's continue. So when I was in the 5th grade, I didn't like the teacher and I wanted to basically finish school and just continue with something else. I didn't have any idea of me being a teacher right now, but I started learning English a little, and when I was in the 8th grade, this teacher, I believe, got retired, and there was another teacher that came to our class. I basically didn't unlike or like her. I had never seen her teaching method, but in our country, the class is separated into 2 groups when it comes to a language class. And I was basically in the 2nd group. And in the 1st group, there was another teacher who was young, and that's why she was teaching English to her students eagerly. I think more eagerly than our teacher did. And I think she got married and they changed their group teacher too, and they changed our group teacher too. And I switched to the 1st group. Not because I didn't like the teacher that replaced the young teacher from the other group was my mom's uncle's wife. So I didn't basically want to change my group because of that, but because she is my relative and she wanted me to be in her group. And I'm so happy that she actually picked me, because when they changed the 1st group's teacher and 2nd group's teacher, I basically said that okay, maybe I'm going to love this. But because she was also an old teacher, I thought maybe old teachers don't have any motivation to teach younger, and that's why I wanted to change my group. When I changed my group to the 1st group, I started to like English a little, but because everyone in that group was already A2 level and I was stuck in A1 level because of the motivation that I didn't have. And I started to love it a little, started to learn something, but I wasn't into English so much. Basically, if you are in Azerbaijan in the 10th grade, you start preparing for the entrance exam for university. You need to learn English, but not the English language itself, but the grammar and vocabulary and maybe a little reading. And I started learning English with her, and I started to like English when I was in the 10th grade. I did want to learn English when I was in the 9th grade with my cousin, because my cousin was going to her house to learn English as well, but because I didn't want her to teach me for 3 years for free, and that's why I didn't ask, but I was dying to ask, but I couldn't. So basically, when I was in the 10th grade, I started learning grammar, vocabulary, and reading, and something like this. And I started to love English. It was not the only reason why I started to like. It was, I believe, Novruz holiday, which is a traditional holiday in Azerbaijan. And I had like 1 week being at home. My brother had a personal computer and I started to watch the TV series called Supernatural. And it was a very, very interesting TV series. And it was the, I think, first TV series I started watching. I loved the accent of the people who were speaking English there. I fell in love with the boy who plays the main character, Dean. Jensen Ackles, I think his name is. I wanted to learn this language so well that I could understand this language, or I could understand this TV series in original language. And I've watched it with English subtitles, but I wanted to remove the subtitles, watch it without any problems, but I couldn't, and I started to be immersed in the language almost every day. Even though I was preparing for university, it was the time where I felt like I needed to study more so that I could get into university, and I somehow wanted to be an English teacher along the way. Even though I was going back and forth being an Azerbaijani and literature teacher, and sometimes wanted to be an elementary school teacher, but somehow I was mostly into English. That's why I tried to do my best to be an English teacher. I didn't get into university as an English teacher. I actually studied French at university, and I'm so lucky to be able to learn something at university, like a language. If I were an elementary teacher or an Azerbaijani and literature teacher, maybe I wouldn't learn English, I think, but I don't think like that. I would maybe learn English because I didn't study English and I learned English anyway. But anyway, and I became a French teacher actually, officially. I have the diploma in French teaching, but I started teaching English when I was in the first year at university. I actually didn't officially start teaching English. I was trying to help students in my neighborhood, especially our tenant who encouraged me to teach his children, his sons, and I wanted to earn some money. I wanted to have some pocket money where I could spend a little because I wasn't getting any scholarship from university, from the government, and I started to teach them in English. I wasn't good at English. I wasn't able to speak English. I was, trying to utter some words in English, but I was able to translate, and vocabulary was enough to teach English to young kids. And I actually started with students who are in the second year or third year in elementary school, and it was basically only 2 students. I started with 2 students at first, then 2 students told their classmates who were actually my relatives as well. They came after that. Some of my other neighbors heard that I am teaching English, and they also sent their children to me to teach English. So basically I started with 6 students, 2 students, and then 2 students more, and 2 students more, and then I had 6 students. And it was so cheap. I was teaching 1 student for 10 minutes at that time, so I was earning 60 minutes per month, and it was basically for the first year like this. And then I started to teach more students and more students, and all my students were so curious, so interested in this language, and it basically triggered love in me, and I started to search more and more every single day to be able to teach them really well. And until I finished university, I had quite a lot of students, and I was trying to earn money and trying to go to university, trying to buy some clothes and pay for my own commute, because at that time the bus was only 20 kopek. I was only going to university and coming back, not spending a lot of money, because my husband back then, my boyfriend, didn't let me go anywhere after university. Sometimes he was coming to university to pick me up and we were going home and etc. But not only because of him, but also because I had a lot of classes at home after university, and also before university. When I finished university, I continued teaching English, but I also wanted to study master's degree. But because my French was fading away, because I was more into English than into French, I started to teach more and earn more. I had 20-ish students at that time, and I was earning normal. I think for my age it was okay. I was not leaving my home, but then I started to teach at courses, which was a good way because I was able to speak English, because I was not speaking much with my students at home because they were basically learning grammar and vocabulary but not speaking necessarily. It was actually April, and I started teaching English from April to June because of a replacement. A teacher was, I think, getting married or something, and that's why she left. And in September probably they gave my lessons to other teachers because there were 2 or 3 teachers there and they needed me only for 2 months or something. And I didn't continue there. I continued in another language school where I went in the city, and it was far, and I got married and I got pregnant, and that's why I left there too after 6 months or 7 months. I started to love English more and wanted to speak better. I was preparing for IELTS exam as well, but I didn't want to take the exam at that time because of my baby. I had my baby in 2019, and I had my baby. I wanted to work because of the financial problems that I had, and that's why I started working at a language school, which is one of the most famous language schools in Azerbaijan. And then coronavirus hit, and I started teaching English online at that time, and I don't know how, I don't know why, maybe because my mom helped me a lot with my daughter. I started to teach English from 8 o'clock in the morning till 10 o'clock and 11 o'clock in the evening, and I started to improve my English so much that English became a huge part of my life. For I think 1 year I only taught English online, and I started to love this language so much that I wanted to get IELTS certificate, which I did. I prepared for the exam for a month and got my 7.5 IELTS certificate, and I continued teaching English more and more, and then left that job. It was not because of I didn't like that course or something like this, but it was so difficult for me to work 6 times a week from 9 to 6 with a daughter who was a stubborn one. And I quit my job and went to another language school, and I was more flexible there. I was going to that language school 3 times, sometimes 4 times a week. But in the language school, I taught English for 2.5 years. I was going there almost every day, and even Sundays were trial lesson day where I was teaching trial lessons to see if they were going to love me so that I could start teaching them as well. It was so difficult for me as an English teacher and as a mom, as a wife, and I didn't want to do all of them simultaneously because I wasn't able to. I wasn't physically able to do everything, so I couldn't have any time for myself, for my daughter, for my hobbies, for my life, and I didn't have any time to spend that money I earned. And I went to another language school where I taught 3 times, sometimes twice, sometimes 4 times, and I earned the same amount of money that I earned in the language school that I was working for 6 days a week. In language school, I was actually teaching from 9 o'clock to 4 o'clock or maximum 5 o'clock. So it was a difficult time back then, and I was so emotional at that time, and I started to think that I need to stop this job too because I wanted to have a more stable job, which I did. I took an exam for MIG, which is an exam where you can take so that you can teach at school. I wanted to have a stable job where I could go to school and earn normal money and come home and teach English more. But I had a 1-year contract with school where I taught, and it was really difficult. Not only in physically, because I was waking up at 5 o'clock and leaving home at 6 o'clock. I was going only 3 times a week, sometimes twice a week, but it was basically not the money I wanted to have. I was earning not even 300 manat, which is not something that worth a shot. I wanted to quit in the middle of the year, and I actually didn't want to continue working at school, but then I said that maybe it would be just an experience for me, and I continued until the year finished. And then I wanted to start my online language classes. I actually wanted to start my online classes where I could teach English because I had an Instagram page where I was trying to share some things, but all of a sudden my cousin recommended me a language school where I could teach. It just happened all of a sudden, and I didn't know what to do and how I actually started, because I was planning to start my own business, but somehow I started teaching English there for almost 9 months, if I'm not mistaken, and I stopped there last year in March, and now I'm officially an English teacher who teaches from home. I am so lucky that I had a chance to teach English from morning till evening, and only in English. I'm not saying that you have to speak English from morning till evening, but because I had the chance to do that, because of my Russian speakers, I had to speak English on a regular basis. So normally if I have a student who speaks Azerbaijani and who is not able to speak another language, I can speak a little along the way in Azerbaijani, right? But fortunately, I only had the students who were able to speak Russian, not able to speak Azerbaijani. We were learning English together, right? Like they were trying to learn English, but they were not able to speak Azerbaijani. I was not able to speak Russian. The only language we could communicate was English, and I was trying to do my best to speak this language as much as I could. It was offline for like 4 months, if I'm not mistaken. I started in December, and in March the coronavirus hit our country. We had to work online from home, taught English every day from home, and I'm so lucky that I had Russian speakers who I actually taught only English. They learned English, I learned English, so it was a win-win situation for us, and that's why I improved my English so much during this time. Normally people would think that coronavirus changed their life in a negative way. It changed our lives in a negative way. However, it changed my life in a more positive way. I learned English more, I improved my English, I made English my source of income and source of motivation, and I earned money and I made a living by that, and I'm so fortunate to be able to do that. And after that, I didn't want to speak another language during our lessons, even though the students are not able to speak this language well. I kind of made them and forced them to speak English, and now that I am an English teacher, and I'm so happy that English became a huge part of my life. I do not speak Azerbaijani with my daughter or with my students. I am mostly at home right now. I do speak Azerbaijani with people who can't speak English, and I would love to live in a country where English is spoken. I could speak English every day without speaking another language. I do like my native language. It's a very comfortable language for me to express my feelings from time to time, but I don't know how, but I feel more comfortable speaking in English, and I feel like I can express my feelings more in English because I got to speak this language for the last 12 years, more for the last 6 years, 7 years, non-stop. And I spend my days from morning till evening teaching online classes in English, even think in English. I even speak with myself in English. I even speak with my daughter in English. So that's why it kind of became a huge part of my life. When I speak English and when I switch to Azerbaijani, I stutter a lot, which is okay for me because you speak English from morning till evening, and you speak English with your daughter, and you see your husband only in the evening for like 2-3 hours before sleeping. It becomes a huge part of your life. I do dream in English as well. I do speak English with my students. I journal in English. I write the letters to myself in English. I make videos in English, and I watch things in English. And the content that I watch on YouTube or on Instagram is more in English. So basically is something that I don't want to forget this language. Sometimes I do want to stop teaching because I want to get some rest, but without speaking English, I don't think I can live. And I can actually live without teaching English because I would get to speak English again with my daughter, with people who I know, but I don't want to. I want to teach this language. I want to be a part of someone's life. And this is a motivational video that I made for my students as well as for people who want to learn a language. I'm not saying that you have to speak from morning till evening in order to be able to speak fluently, but I want you to be immersed in the language as much as you can. Watch things in English, read things in English, speak with yourself in English, speak with the people who speak English in English. You'll get there, don't worry. Like, life is already full of ups and downs, and English also will make you feel like you are struggling a lot, which is okay. I struggled a lot when I learned English. I struggled a lot when I taught English. There were times I felt like no way I can speak this language, but after years of practice and years of dedication, I can finally say that I am able to speak English as much as I can speak my native language. Cannot say that it is as perfect as my native, but at least I don't struggle when I speak English. I don't think and then speak English. It just comes out of my mouth automatically, which I'm really happy about, and I want everyone to continue believing in themselves. And if you speak this language, it will give you more motivation to learn more languages, and I'm so motivated to learn more languages. Even though I finished university as a French teacher, knowing English actually makes me want to learn other languages, and French is one of the most favorite languages that I have tried to learn. And I started to learn German at university and Russian as well. And now that I am able to speak English, I want to continue with French, and then I want to learn Russian and German. It basically changes your mindset, changes your role. And now I want to travel more because I can get to practice English more or speak English with the native speakers. Or if I go to another country, at least English will be spoken or understood by the local people, even though they don't speak English on a regular basis. We went to Georgia on our honeymoon. Even though I wasn't good at English, I tried to communicate a little in English with the locals. But then if I go now, I know that I will be able to communicate well with the people who live there. And not only Georgia, I want to go to any country in the world that English can be spoken. And I know that English is an international language and everybody speaks this language, at least understands a little. And I want to go to countries and travel within the country and communicate and interact with people in English. And I also want to improve my French, improve my German and Russian, so I can get to speak with the locals in these languages as well. But I know for a fact that if I go to these countries like France, Germany, Russia, or another country, I don't have to speak the languages they speak. With English, I can survive and I can get by. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'll see you in the next one.